and committed so many sins. So it's like, we are not alone in those things when we fall short and when we struggle and when we doubt and when we revert to our old ways and all of that. And I love that parallel of the Israelites not being immediately delivered into the promised land is like our process of sanctification, because that is our daily process of seeking the Lord, desiring to honor him, but also knowing that until we are reunited with Jesus, we will not be perfect. And so we just do the best that we can, and we learn and grow, and God keeps working on us, creating us into the image of Jesus, little and little, more and more throughout our life, to be a blessing to others. And then one day we'll be made perfect in his presence. So good.
Amen. Girl, preach.
Well, I love it, and I'm just so passionate about it, and I love that we share that passion. That's what's so exciting to me. The other thing I was thinking about is, sometimes God also uses our struggles, like we've said, to draw us closer to him. But sometimes there may be things that we may not be delivered from. So when you were talking about Paul, I was also thinking, well, he struggled with this thorn in his flesh that we don't know exactly what that was, but he asked God to take it from him, and God said no. So I think that there's certain things that are meant to remain that we may never be fully delivered from, even though we want it. Mm-hmm. But God has a bigger purpose in mind. And if he needs to use a struggle to draw us closer to him, well, then that's what it needs to be.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I've wondered, if that was my, is my thorn in the flesh, and then I've realized, because even now, my perspective continues to evolve, especially when you pray things and then God answers in unexpected ways. For example, Paul talks about being, that God will make you fruitful and effective. And so it's like, Lord, I can't make myself fruitful and effective. Only you can. And so in answering the prayer for fruitfulness and effectiveness, you got to till up some soil. And what happens when you till up soil? You might find like little pockets of toxic waste called sin. So there are so many ways that the Lord will prepare you to be fruitful and effective. And what I've, and so in the difference between, all the things that the Lord has shown me, and I think of a Joni Eareckson Tada, in terms of a thorn in the flesh. And her, the times that she's wanted healing. And not only has she not gotten healing, she's especially recently suffered through several, bouts with pain and illness and cancer. But her, oh my gosh, to hear her speak in her testimony, talk about, glorifying the Lord and the genuineness and depth of her faith that has been wrought in her through suffering, through her thorn in the flesh. And then, so I'm thinking, well, maybe mine's not really a thorn in the flesh. Maybe mine's just sin. And turns out so far that, for me, the Lord is revealing. I mean, here's another prayer that means more soil needs to be filled up. Is what did Jesus say? The two most important commandments are: love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And I'm like, Lord, can I say that sincerely and genuinely without deceiving myself? No. And I'm like, and I can't, even Peter struggled with that, when in John chapter 21, when Jesus is saying, Peter, do you love me? Do you love me more than these? I think we had talked about that before. So Peter is recognizing that he doesn't have the ability to agape Jesus, the way Jesus is asking, to love him. And we are reliant on God to equip us to love him the way he commands us to love him. So that was, God is beginning to open my eyes to all the ways that, the things, the encumbrances that are in my way for loving the Lord the way he commands you to love him. And I'm like, Lord, I need you. And not only that, Lord, I need you to not only love others as myself, but like Jesus, like raised the bar and he said, love them as I love them. And I'm like, that's even harder than loving you. So all that to say, you were talking about, about the thorn in the flesh. I think the Lord will give you the ability to distinguish, and in his faithfulness, he'll be saying, you know what, I have more for you, but in giving you more, there are some things that I need to jostle that are going to need to come out of your life. And so he'll rattle some idols you didn't even know that you had, but while he's doing it, he's becoming so much more precious to you along the way. You'll be like, okay, Lord, I know this is going to hurt a little bit, but I know this is necessary. Let's do it because I want more of you. More of you is worth, you helping me get rid of these smaller things, these lesser things, lesser loves. And the world is competing for our affections. And we absolutely need him to show us, to help us love him more, and to realize that that's where joy and peace is David's delight. I promise I'm going to finish talking in a second. I was just in Psalm chapter 4, where David was talking about, Lord, you give me more delight in my heart than when their grain and wine abound. And I thought about that. He did not say, Lord, you give me more joy than when my grain and wine abound. And so what that made me think about is that David was saying, you are my only God. I have no other gods before you. I'm not even trying to compare you to other things in my life and saying, you're the best thing in my life. You are the thing in my life. And so that was, in reading that, I feel like that was, another answer to prayer in terms of, it's not that I need to love him more than these other affections. It's like all those other affections, need to be out of my life, and he's got to help me with that. So.
Wow. That's so huge.
He'll do it.
So
and it's just the beauty of his word. I mean, his word is so rich and astonishing, and the more you're in it, and the more he opens your eyes, the more you do realize that it is not only a love letter, but it's the love letter of all love letters. From Genesis to Maps, the whole thing.
Wow, so good. I really, really, really love that, because I think oftentimes we can begin to realize what idols we've put above God in our life. Maybe it's the idol of our appearance, maybe it's the idol of acceptance of other people, pleasing other people.
And they're done that. Got those t-shirts.
Right. And so when we realize that, we can be like, okay, I need to bring that down. I need to tear that down. I need to recognize that and begin to intentionally begin putting God back in his proper place. But that just takes it to a whole nother level, that not only do I need to have God in his proper place as number one, he shouldn't be number one of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He should be number one and only one, and there are no other ones.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a whole new level. But that would be the purest form of following that ultimate commandment of loving him with everything that you are. If he is enough for you, you don't want or need any of the other things. And so that's part of the journey then of growing and asking him for help. A lot of times I think we're trying to do so much in our own strength with our own sufficiency, and it won't ever be enough. So asking God, when you're being shown these things, asking him for help to help you get there, to help you let these things go. to help you break down those barriers, either helping you do it or doing it for you if you literally cannot do it for yourself. And I have so many instances where God has intervened on my behalf when I knew that I couldn't do it on my own. And so asking him for that, because he wants to be our strength when our strength is not enough. What's the point of having this amazing God if we can handle all the things in life that we need to on our own?
And that's kind of the nature of the culture that we live in. Is it's so individualistic, and it's all about autonomy, and that's kind of like the nature that we're born into anyway. It was the temptation that Eve had was, that Satan pointed out to her that it will make you like God, knowing good and evil. We have that, we want to be our own gods. And a lot of times, I think even early on in our faith, I wouldn't have realized it in the middle of it, but it's like, I wanted God to serve me. My prayers were about God helping me make my life the way I wanted my life. And then I realized that, and it's not like all of a sudden, I desire the life that God has for me. It's like, and in fact, I read a lot of John Piper's books because he seems to like answer all my questions. So I'm asking the Lord, it's like, Lord, honestly, I can look in myself and say that not only do I not desire that, I don't even desire to desire that. And that's when I ran across a book by John Piper called When I Don't Desire God. And really, I mean, that was one of the first books. I think it was the first book that I read by him. And he really, I don't, whatever it is about the way he thinks and about that, first of all, he loves, adores God's word, loves, adores God. So, and everything that he does points you to God, and he points you to it through his word. So I have found all of his books really, really helpful. And, it's like, so God's word makes demands on us, but God equips us, and he will. And that's what grace is all about. It's like not only grace that saves us, it's grace that equips us. So anyway, John Piper, just the reality of when you look inside yourself, I would have been kidding myself, and I probably often did, that my desires and motives were okay and pure enough. And so finally I'm getting to the point, unfortunately, late in my life, especially relative to you, that I'm realizing that's like, Lord, I don't have anything to bring to the table. And so my inner overachiever wants to bring something to the table. And I have a hard time stopping her from trying to do that. She wakes up every morning and she's like, we haven't changed. I'm still the same person. And it's like, Lord, didn't we accomplish anything yesterday? Well, you didn't, but I did. But so not to make light of it, but he is, if we are his, he is faithfully sanctifying us. He's the perfect Father that is raising us to be like his perfect Son, Jesus. And, in Romans 8:28 said, God causes all things to work together for good, for those that love him, agape him, and are called according to his purpose. And that verse is taken out of context a lot, where people are like, well, God's going to make this situation work out for my good. And that's not what it means. If you read the next verse, the good that God intends for us is making us like Christ. So that's the ultimate good, and talking about, you're alluding to that we're called to love God and have no other gods. He knows we can't. He is merciful and gracious, and he's going to help us love him like that. Mm-hmm. And is when we love him like that, that's going to be our greatest joy and delight. That's what we're made for, is to have our greatest joy and delight in him, because that's where it really is. I mean, you think about anything in life that you think that, I don't want to give that up. that thing is making you miserable and you don't really realize, you know.
Wow.
And, you know, and one of my idols, and I think it's